As you've probably seen in the news, there's been another fatal helicopter crash. This time it happened in Manhattan a few days ago on the 10th of April, where a family of 5 was simply taking a sightseeing tour on a tourist helicopter when that helicopter, mid-flight, suffered some catastrophic failure and fell into and started breaking apart and crashed into the Hudson River. Now, this was a Bell 206L LongRanger, a very common, well-known, well-recognized helicopter. It's been flying for decades, has a very good track record of safety, very reliable machine. And so there is a lot of mystery about what could have possibly happened here. The NTSB's report will be very revealing and I would be very interested in seeing what the actual data shows. In this video, I don't want to show the crash out of respect for the loved ones and those who perished, because this is obviously a big tragedy with children and people dying. And I'm not going to focus either on ATC transmissions or the route that the helicopter took, because those are not relevant to determining or narrowing down what might have happened here. It is a beautiful route. That VFR route down the Hudson River and back, close to the Statue of Liberty and past Manhattan. It's a beautiful flight under Class B airspace. It's under 1,200 feet or so, I think. I've flown it myself. So a lovely, lovely, lovely flight to take. But it's not relevant. The only footage I want to show you are some footage that might show us something about when the failure occurred. And before I do that, let me just say that, I'm here not in my normal studio. I'm away from home on a little trip. But I thought it would be helpful to just share my thoughts on this crash. And so I thought I'd make a quick video on on what I think could have happened here, since this is very relevant to my channel anyway. Okay. So let's take a look at this video. Now you'll see the helicopter coming from left to right. It seems to be flying in straight and level flight, no issues. And up until this point, when suddenly it swivels and then falls out of the sky with pieces starting falling off. The first piece, which seems to have been the tail boom, comes off. And then the second piece seems to be the main rotor assembly coming off. And then in the next video, we see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of helicopter. And then the fifth piece is the main airframe upside down. If we go here, you can see this is the airframe upside down. You can see the skids. You can see the top part of the helicopter is missing. But what I want to focus here on in this video is just this image. This frame, for example, shows you this rotor, which seems to be intact, still gyrating, but there's a big piece of transmission still attached to it. And so the first piece seems to be this seems to be tail rotor back, or tail boom back here, and then this is main rotor. There's main rotor gyrating, and the helicopter body, or the airframe, is upside down at this point because of the center of mass on top of the body, right? That's tilted it over upside down. And then in the next video, you see the main rotor gyrating down. It still has all of its energy. It seems to have maintained its inertia, still spinning as it's coming down. So what could have... A lot of questions now. First of all, what caused the helicopter there was a bang heard by people on the ground. Then the helicopter swivels suddenly. What could have caused that? The tail boom breaks off. This was with tail rotor and everything breaks off. And then the main rotor breaks off, maintains its inertia, its rotational inertia, and it brings its piece of transmission with it. So these are very mysterious, very concerning questions, and not something we see a lot in helicopter accidents. Not a helicopter breaking apart like this. Helicopters are fairly reliable, and especially the Bell 206 is a very well-known, very well-designed piece of machinery. They have a very good safety record if well maintained. There's a lot of maintenance involved with helicopters because they have so many parts. You know, the more parts you have, the more chances of failure you have. So helicopters spend more hours in the workshop than flying, essentially. That's just how the way helicopters are. Some people say a helicopter doesn't fly. It's just that the earth rejects them. And that's a joke among pilots, but helicopters are amazing pieces of engineering. And if you haven't ever flown a helicopter or seen one up close, you know, or haven't seen what, you know, even if you fly RC helicopters, you'll have an appreciation for the amazing engineering that makes a helicopter fly. And there are different types of helicopters. Some have tail rotors. There are helicopters that do not have tail rotors. For example, coaxial bladed rotors or counter-rotating rotors that do not need tail spinning rotors. They can also fly. But let's take a look at a very simple diagram of a typical helicopter drivetrain, just to start the discussion of what could have failed here. So this is what the Bell 206 is also how it's also structured. The engine connects to a big gearbox. This gearbox transfers engine power to the main drive shaft, which turns the main rotor. These are the main rotor blades, and this turns it. And out of the same gearbox is also another shaft that connects to the tail rotor through two smaller gearboxes. And this is, of course, very oversimplified because there are a lot of things in the complexity in this machine that's not shown here. For example, the main rotor has a swash plate, it has linkages. The main blades of the main rotor can change pitch, and not just, they can change pitch independently depending on the position in that rotation. They can change pitch. This is done by the swash plate and these linkages. And it's controlled from the inside of the helicopter with the collective. If you pull the collective up, it changes the pitch. It increases the pitch of the helicopter to give you more a lift by pulling up. And you also have a throttle there. And then the collective, basically, if you think of the main rotor spinning like a disc, like a frisbee maybe, think of it, you know, as just a disc, and if you push the collective forward, this disc is going to tilt left. It can tilt left, right, forward, backward, and anything in between. There's also gyroscopic effects involved. So in a gyroscope, for example, if you have a gyroscope spinning, let's say there's a front and a rear, so like a helicopter, and you push down in the front of it, there's going to be a 90-degree lag before it tilts. So if you push there, the tilt is actually going to be to the side. And this is how gyroscopes work. That the force is applied 90 degrees off the actual tilt that occurs. All those effects have to be incorporated in how a helicopter works. Now, not just the main blades can change pitch, the tail rotor blades can also change pitch because they are connected to the gearbox. And in order to change the torque applied by the tail rotor, you have to be able to change the pitch of those blades. So that's another complexity that's not shown on this diagram. Another thing that's not shown in this diagram is the clutch. There's a clutch that can decouple the engine from the gearbox. And this is important for something called auto rotation. Auto rotation is an auto rotation, or let me say, an auto rotation landing is an emergency procedure for landing a helicopter in the event of engine failure mid-flight. So let's say you're flying and you lose the engine stops running. Then you decouple the clutch and you try to make the main rotor blade spin faster or maintain its speed. But you want to reach a certain speed of the main rotor spinning. And if it's let's say the engine or they've lost too much speed, you're going to change the pitch so that as the helicopter loses altitude, that translational movement is going to increase the speed of your rotor. Okay, so you're going to have this. Think of it as like a fan that's rotating, and you can changing the blade pitch. You can make it go faster as you go down. This inertia of this main rotor can then be used as you approach the ground to change the pitch again, to slow it down, to slow down the fall. So you cushion the fall by using it against its fall, and you change the blade. So it's going to slow down the rotation, but that slowing down of that inertia is then producing lift again to break the fall, and you're going to land the helicopter. It's just using the inertia as the power that is the power reserve to break the fall of this helicopter. Instead of, you don't have the engine anymore, so you cannot do that. So this makes a helicopter fairly safe. Now, if you think about things like electric drone type vehicles, because there's these flying cars that they make out of drones with electric motors spinning them. This is a big concern for me when I look at those vehicles, because those spinning motors, spinning fans in drones don't have enough inertia to do auto rotation landings. So that's a big disadvantage to me with drone type alternatives to helicopters. Another thing to consider in a helicopter is that if you were to lose your tail rotor, you lose control authority over the helicopter. You cannot fly a helicopter without its anti-torque or counter-torque mechanism, and because you don't have any control anymore. And so it's just going to spin and probably fly apart, because that if the main rotor is spinning in one direction, your body is going to spin in the opposite direction. It's just the way it is, and so you cannot lose a tail rotor. This is important. Another thing is that if you have seen movies where helicopters fail like that, where they shoot the helicopter now and the tail rotor breaks and now the helicopter spins, and so remember, it's a movie and that's not reality. When they did that, when they shot that, they didn't really lose a tail rotor. They were just controlling it to spin it and to get the shot. But movies don't tell us what really happens in a situation like that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's just an overview of how a helicopter works. And I've left a lot of things out, but I hope that gives you enough of an explanation. Now, what could possibly have caused the whole transmission to come off with the main rotor? This picture here shows you what a 206L, Bell 206L's transmission looks like, and I believe this is a Bell 206L's transmission and linkages that connect it to the airframe. So these yellow bars, 4 of them, 2 on the opposite side as well, connect and hold this gearbox in place. You can see the main drive shaft coming out here, and the engine is supposed to be connected on the one side. And this seems to be a lot of metal that will have to be, a lot of force it will take to break all this off of the airframe, right? But there has been an incident in 2022 when a Bell 206L, and you can see the famous shape helicopter here. There it is. Let's take a look here. There's the helicopter. This is the Bell 206L. And this linkage broke mid-flight. So let's just see what occurred. So here's what the pilot says. While surveying above a forest, the pilot heard a loud bang, and the helicopter pitched nose up, rolled to the left, and started vibrating severely. The pilot applied cyclic. This is the control that tilts the disc, essentially the main rotor. He applied cyclic to counter the pitch and roll, and flew straight for about 10 seconds, at which point the vibration effectively stopped. The pilot was then able to conduct a precautionary landing in some farmland about 2 kilometers away. Okay, so in this case, he was lucky. He was able to maintain control of the aircraft. He was able to maintain control authority with cyclic, and the vibrations didn't last. He was able to land it safely, even fly 2 kilometers and land it. But this is the failure that happened. It was metal fatigue that they missed in an inspection, and it broke. And this is like an engine mount, right? Like an engine mount that breaks, that keeps the engine of your car connected to the body of the car. It broke off. And so it's a very serious failure that happened due to a fracture from metal fatigue. This shows the Bell 206. This is the Bell 206L's smaller brother. Its transmission. Here you can see parts of the swash plate and linkages that will change the pitch of the rotors. But this is the transmission, and this is the linkages. These are the linkages, these triangular pieces that keeps it connected to the body or to the airframe. This is a military, you can see the rockets here, but anyway, this is a Bell 206, and you can see the linkage over there. And this is the transmission, the main rotor, main shaft, and then there's the engine. And inside this boom here, there's the shaft to the tail rotor, and the pitch of these tail rotors can change. This is another Bell. It's not the same helicopter, but it shows you again that this situation, we have the shaft going through the tail rotor. You have some hydraulics here, and engine, transmission, links, main shaft, and so forth. And this one also shows the rear-facing seat. So the Bell 206L has this extra row of seats facing rearward for more passengers, ideal for, tourist helicopters. Okay. So the question now is, what can we learn by looking at these videos and what we know about the helicopter now? Is there any way to narrow down what could have caused the crash and what may not be the cause? Some people have claimed it could be a mast strike or a boom strike. Mast strike is still slightly different. It's a main shaft, and there's an internal problem that happens when the main rotor is tilted too far. in some helicopters. I don't believe there was any indication in this that there were violent movements or, maneuvers that could have caused that. Not in this. It's flying straight and stable flight. There's no reason here to expect a mass strike or a boom strike. A boom strike is where the main rotor hits the tail boom, and maybe damages it that way. Neither of these seem to be the case here. A boom strike is also unlikely because in this video we see that the main rotor is intact. It's still intact. It seems to be gyrating fine. It seems to be balanced. It seems to be working. And in this video we see the same thing. In this other video, look at that. It doesn't look like it is severely damaged by a strike. So it doesn't look like the main rotor struck anything. That's the first thing. Some people have suggested that perhaps the linkages failed on the main rotor. I do not see anything like that happening. I don't see the swash plate assembly breaking in this instance. It doesn't seem to be the cause of it. What is telling is that this helicopter seems to be flying straight and level, and boom, all of a sudden it swivels. It swivels and then it breaks apart. So the fact that it swivels tells us something, and this says that quite possibly there was something that happened in this drive shaft assembly, the tail drive shaft assembly, or the tail rotor, anywhere in between here. If something happened there, the drive shaft broke, or gear broke, or gearbox broke, or something like that, and this tail rotor simply stopped spinning, then the entire body is suddenly now experiencing a shock and a force that is trying to transfer that torque into the rest of the body. And this seems to be what happened. It seems to me like it lost its counter torque mechanism, and that energy was enough to break off the tail of the entire helicopter. So you lose your counter torque and the tail breaks off. And now a succession of failures occurred. So there was a failure first, it seems, in the tail assembly, tail rotor drive assembly. And then a succession of other failures. Next, the tail boom, entire tail boom tore off. And then the body, the airframe tore off that rotating main rotor. The main rotor has a lot of energy in it as it is rotating, and so I think it seems like when you lost that counter torque, the helicopter basically started disintegrating. It's as simple as that. Of course, when the NTSB has finished their investigation, when they looked at all these parts, once they've recovered all the parts, and they've already recovered most of it, I believe. But once they've recovered all the parts, they will be able to determine what failed first. And I'd be very interested in seeing what happened there. But it's not, this is a mysterious thing because it is not a common failure for these helicopters to fail like this. This is not something we see often. And so tragic loss of life in a very, very safe and reliable machine. And it's a shocking type of incident that we don't want to see happen very often. But I'll be curious to find out what the final verdict is. Thanks for watching. This is Truth Matters Unplugged.